Welcome to our service for Good Friday. The form this is going to take is a very reflective one, I hope, for you. There will be Bible readings, meditation, and a bit of Taizé at each station of the cross. We're using 14 of the 15. I'm not using number 15 because that's the joy of the resurrection, and today is Good Friday, a day of reflection on the crucifixion. There will be silences for you to have your own thoughts. There will be plenty of information on the screen. And we're going to start with There is a Green Hill Far Away, which gives me the opportunity to say that remotely, so long as your pets maybe don't mind too much, you do actually join in with the singing. So there is a green hill far away.
The first station. Jesus is condemned to death. A reading from St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 1 to 5 and 11 to 15. As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." Then the chief priest accused him of many things. Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. But the chief priest stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas for them instead. Pilate spoke to them again, "Then what do you wish me to do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them, and, after flogging Jesus, had him handed over to be crucified.
Pilate asked what crime Jesus had committed. It was a good question. Jesus had annoyed the religious leaders, of that there was no doubt. He had been critical of social and religious structures. He had healed villagers. He had told stories to the crowds. He was probably a threat to public law and order. But was that enough to condemn him? To end his life? But he would not defend himself. The storyteller was silent now, and the crowd was noisy. And Pilate handed him over to be crucified.
The second station. Jesus takes up his cross. A reading from St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 16 to 20. Then the soldiers led him into the courtyard of the palace, that is, the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole cohort. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on him. And they began saluting him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him.
Soldiers, taking the chance for a bit of fun. They had a heavy day ahead. Soon they would have to put on their public face. Disciplined, controlled, efficient. But for now, a bit of a lark with the lads, with no risk of recrimination, as dead men don't tell stories, and Jesus was going to his death.
The third station. Jesus falls the first time. From the book of Isaiah, chapter 53, verse 1. Who has believed what we have heard? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?
Jesus was exhausted. He was in pain. He was going to his death. The cross was heavy, and he fell. He was flesh and blood, like us. He was struggling.
The fourth station. Jesus meets his mother. A reading from St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 2, verses 22, 25, 34, and 35. When the time came for the purification according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. Now there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon. This man was righteous and devout, looking forward to the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit rested on him. Then Simeon blessed them and said to his mother Mary, "This child is destined for the falling and the rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be opposed, so that the inner thoughts of many will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your own soul too."
She was going to be there at his end. She'd been there with God at his beginning. She was his mother. She had fed him and cradled him and watched over his growing. Whatever he had said and done, he was still her son, and she would not desert him now. Whatever pain of his she could embrace, she would. And in the meeting of their eyes, there was love, suffering, and shining.
The fifth station. Simon helps Jesus carry his cross. From St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 15, verse 21. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus.
Simon from Cyrene, father of Alexander and Rufus. What a tale you had to tell your children. You helped Jesus. You gave him your strength on the streets of Jerusalem. Willing or unwilling, you, Simon, have become part of his story, and he part of yours, for you helped him when he needed you. What would we give to be Simon?
The sixth station. Veronica wipes the face of Jesus. From St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, verses 35 to 36 and verse 40. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. And the king will answer them, truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me.
Wiping faces, dirty faces. Faces full of sweat and tears. Faces covered in chocolate and in jam. Wiping faces is something we try to do gently and lovingly. Something that soothes and cleanses. Something that brings healing. Wiping faces is something we do for those who are young or old, or in pain or in trouble, wanting them to know that they are cherished and loved. And when we wipe the face of God's little ones, we are wiping the face of God.
let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too.
The seventh station. Jesus falls for a second time. From Isaiah chapter 53, verse 7. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth.
I'm finding it hard to watch you, Jesus. To see you struggling, to see you on the ground. Into your silence, I want to shout. Why do they keep on hurting you? What have you done wrong?
The eighth station. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. From St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 23, verses 27 and 28. A great number of people followed him, and among them were women who were beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children."
Weep for the mothers and children of Jerusalem, for Israeli and Palestinian, for Jew and Muslim and Christian, for the strangers in their midst. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray that her people may live together in justice. Pray that all people may live together in peace.
The 9th station. Jesus falls for a 3rd time. From Isaiah chapter 53, verses 4 to 5. Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases, yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed.
I'm not sure if I can watch this much longer. In his pain, I see my pain. In his falling, I see myself falling. In his cross, I'm included. He carried it for me and my enemies and my friends.
The 10th station. Jesus is stripped of his clothes. The Bible reading from St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 22 to 24. Then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him, and divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take.
Stripped now of clothing, of disciples, of friends, alone, naked and vulnerable, with nothing to protect you from the pain to come.
The 11th station. Jesus nailed to the cross. From St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 23, verses 35 and 49. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." But all his acquaintances, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance, watching these things.
We look on from a distance of time and space and culture, a distance of Friday afternoon in England, in Lent. And for us, it hurts to watch Jesus dying, even at a distance. It hurts to know that we're being rescued. It hurts to know how much we are valued and loved.
The 12th station, Jesus dies on the cross. From St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 23, verses 44 to 46. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last.
In your hands he placed himself, all that he was, all that he had ever been, all his beauty, all his obedience, all his loving. In God's hands he placed himself. He was returning to his Father. He was going home.
At the cross her station keeping, stood the mournful mother weeping, where he hung the dying Lord, for her soul of joy bereaved, bowed with anguish, deeply grieved, felt the sharp and piercing sword.
The 13th station. Jesus is taken down from the cross. The reading is from Mark's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 42 to 46. When evening had come, and since it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate wondered if he were already dead, and summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he had been dead for some time. When he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the body to Joseph. Then Joseph bought a linen cloth, and taking the body down, wrapped it in the linen cloth, and laid it in a tomb that had been hewn out of the rock. He then rolled a stone against the door of the tomb.
Theater. Jesus is dead and lies in the arms of his mother. Death is hard and final, and yet, whatever happens on this earth, children never die to their mothers. In the memory of those who loved them, loved ones remain. And for us, and for all God's people, our hope is safe in God. From swaddling bands to grave clothes, all the days of our living and dying, we are cradled and wrapped in love.
The 14th station. Jesus is laid in the tomb. From St. Mark's Gospel, chapter 15, verses 46 and 47. Then Joseph brought a linen cloth, and taking the body down, wrapped it in the linen cloth, and laid it in a tomb that had been hewn out of the rock. He then rolled a stone against the door of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Jesus, saw where the body was laid.
The door is shut now, and the world sighs and waits. And we wait in night's darkness, longing for the morning, longing for the light.